This is a picture of Starr's Mill as it looked, um, hopefully, I think in 1966. This is George and Fannie Lou Lynch in front of their house across the street from Starr's Mill. Okay, so today my daughter's, I dropped her off for filming of a drama. With COVID, they can't have a play from last year, and so they are filming it and and making a movie out of it. And so they're filming it today in Genoa, Georgia, at a really pretty bed and breakfast called the Veranda, which is really cool since they were nice enough to let them do that. While I was out, I thought I would come, and I love come to this place. It's gorgeous here, and okay, the other side is gorgeous, not the highway behind me, but that I would do a little bit of looking where history happened and check out the areas from some stories I've read and heard, and share them with you. This place is called Starr's Mill, and this is the highway side of the dam. And back there behind that tree is Starr's Mill. As long as I've been alive, this has been a major Fayette County landmark and a really beautiful place to have a picnic. I had no idea all those years that we were picnicking here that something absolutely terrible happened here. And it has actually, well, twice, but two separate tragic two tragic, very violent deaths happened in this picturesque spot. Okay, I brought notes because I have to have notes. That's just how it is. But the historical marker here pretty much sets the scene for us. The property that became known as Starr's Mill was owned by Hanaya Gilcoat, who built the first mill here before his death in 1825. This site on Whitewater Creek was less than a mile from the boundary between Creek Indian lands and the state of Georgia. I learned something, I did not know that. Hilliard Starr, who owned the mill from 1866 until 1879, gave the site its current name. After the first two log structures burned, William T. Glower built the current building in 1907. This mill was operated until 1959 using a water-powered turbine instead of a wheel to grind corn and operate a sawmill. Starr's Mill site was also, this site also included a cotton gin and a dynamo that produced electricity for nearby Genoa. Well, that's cool. They were getting their electricity from here. Okay, so notes. I will be looking down every now and again. I just wanted to remember the details of the story. Really good to be able to tell the story right and all. So yeah, this land was settled, and the original building you see behind me was not the one that was originally built. It was two log structures built by the guy with a really Hananiah, great name, right? Gilcoat, Hananiah Gilcoat. Please tell me he had a nickname. He had to have a nickname, Hanny. Everybody come in and go, "Hi, Hanny, give me some grits." So he built it as grist mill, and it passed into the ownership of William T. Glower. And even though it changed hands, sorry, I'm moving the camera all over the place. Even though it changed hands a bunch of different times, when Mr. Starr owned the place, it just stuck. The name just completely stuck. And so, yeah. Anyway, the structure you see behind me was built in 1907, I think. Anyway, it's well over 100 years old, and it's still standing. I don't think you can go inside it. It's and all, but the dam is still here. The pond is still here. If I am correct, there's this round thing behind me that has something to do with the way the dam works. I am sitting on the part of the dam, and I think what was possibly either the sawmill or the cotton gin site that would have been sitting right where I'm at right now. And so anyway, as the custom of the time, you had a mill, and towns grew up around the mills. And so there was, at this time, it was a thriving community, and they called it, notes. It was called Glen Grove, and it was a thriving town. They had several stores, and general stores. They had the grist mill, a textile mill, a sawmill, and of course a tavern, because face it, it's not a real town if it doesn't have a tavern in it. And I'm sure they had a guy who was always sitting there, and everybody called him named Norm, and everybody knew your name when you walked in there. Had to it. Just absolutely had to. Let's see. In 1902, they started free rural mail delivery. And so that meant that Glen Grove, before that they had changed it to Nyson, N-Y-S-O-N. I don't know who would pick that. That would have to be somebody's name. But anyway, the post office closed, and they changed the name to Glen Grove. Anyway, sometime after that, it got changed to Starr's Mill, and I guess the mill favored in so prominently into the community that it did just eventually take on that name, But it had to be sometime after Mr. Starr owned the place, so it did switch hands several times, and but anyway, back to, in the general store and stuff, setting the stage for what these communities would have been like, is, people didn't have a water cooler to talk around. They couldn't send political Facebook memes, so they didn't have a water cooler, but they did have a pot-bellied stove, and around that pot-bellied stove, they talked. Politics, local news, and fishing stories. And they didn't have a GoPro to prove whether they, were lying or not. But, some things just never change. There always has been fishing stories, and there always will be. And so now we come to the story of what actually happened here. Now obviously it's a very busy highway. There's an intersection not far from here, and it's not it's just kind of been pulled into the town of Sonoa and all, but it is considered a very good landmark. Got a picture of my dad and his senior class picture was taken here, even though he graduated from Clayton County. And but the story we're going to tell involves a Mr. George and Mrs. Lou, hang on, let me get it right, Lou Lynch. Okay, Mr. George and Lou Lynch. They were farmers a little ways out of town. And okay, so now we've set the stage and give you the setting of the mystery. So let's get to the mystery. Wow, it's pretty. This is not gorgeous. Look at all the lily pads back there. I've never really stopped to look at it from this side. I always go to the other side. So, I showed you the highway. Mrs. Lynch was walking up the highway, and a car came by and hit her and flung her over the side of the bridge and into Whitewater Creek. And witnesses who were around ran as quickly as they could to her aid, but there was nothing that could be done. She was already gone. And so Lou Finch died right here in Whitewater, on Highway 85 in 1957. And fast forward 9 years. So after the death of his wife, Fannie Lou, Mr. Lynch continued to live here and be the caretaker of the mill. And fast forward 9 years to November 1st, 1966. And remember that Mrs. Lynch died on November 2nd, 1957, 9 years before. And Mrs. Betty Wick lived across the street, across Highway 85 there. And she was very concerned about Mr. Lynch, and she was very good about watching out for him and everything. He was 83 by this time, so she was legit. She wasn't just spying on him, she was legit looking after the old man. And one day she looks out the window, and there's a maroon car with 2 men, a woman, and some children, and in it. And to her, they just didn't look right. And we all have those moments where this crap ain't right. Some little hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Stuff ain't, something's wrong. And so she just kept watching right then, because I think she was scared to go out in it. I wouldn't, not without a gun. I'd be scared to go out and confront these dudes. They were young people, so probably two guys that were strong, and against a woman and an old man. So she kept watching, and there seemed to be an altercation over a barrel. They pulled up to the green shed that was behind here, which is no longer here, and that's where they stored the barrels. And there were 55-gallon barrels, and to note, they were very commonly, they had a million uses, but one of those uses was in the making of moonshine, which was a big problem around here at the time. And I will end up doing more stories, because there was a lot of bad juju magumbo going on around the moonshine and underground here in the boonies. It's not the boonies anymore. I'm just a few miles from where they filmed The Walking Dead, so it's not the boonies anymore. And so she saw the maroon car, 2 guys, the altercation, and one of the guys even kind of pushed the old man, and she really started getting worried then. But she watched, and everything seemed to calm down. And I think the guy got back in the car, and George Lynch came back here to the mill. And anyway, she quit looking because it looked like everything was okay. And about a half hour later, she went back by her window and noticed that that car was still there. And this was odd. And she saw the woman and the kids sitting in the car. But no, the guys weren't there. So she watched for a few minutes, and one guy ran out, got in the car, and started backing up. As a second guy, the first guy, while he was running to the car, threw something in the creek. And second guy, as he got in, threw something in the back seat. They closed the door, and off they went, never to be seen again. And they actually did not know he was murdered. I don't know how, but with that testimony and all the weirdness of that, you would think that murder would be the first thing, but they saw an 83-year-old guy and assumed it was a stroke or a heart attack. And so they took him to Griffin Hospital by ambulance, and he stayed there, and he died on November 2nd, 1966, exactly 9 years to the day after his wife had been killed on the bridge here at Highway 85. And interesting tidbit there. So, the investigation, well, there was no investigation yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. They did do an autopsy after he died. It took that for them to figure out that he did not have a stroke. He had been hit with a blunt object. So the cause of death was blunt force trauma. And the coroner thought that the weapon was probably a ball-peen hammer. And so now the investigation begins. And the investigation is basically a who's who of Starr's Mill. So basically everybody in town was involved. And there was even a guy, I think, let's check. They went to Mr. Lynch's son to ask for his hat so that they could look at it. And it was kind of torn up. It was messed up, but nothing it wasn't a clue. There was no good evidence there. And they had a guy, Randall Johnson of the State Revenue's office. He found a latent fingerprint on the barrel and was able to lift it and send it off to the state. And I don't think anything came back. So whoever it was not in their, limited database of 1966. However, I mean, that would have been paper files, And, but anyway, they did get a tip from someone to go interview 2 employees at the Pine View restaurant at the corner of Highway 16 and State Highway 85. And this is kind of funny because that restaurant is still there, and it's been turned into everything. It's been barbecue, it was Italian, multiple times it's been Mexican food. I think it was even like in some pretty obscure country, like, I was wanting to say it was like Thai, and for this part, for Georgia, that's, for this part of Georgia, that's pretty obscure. We don't have sushi bars in every corner right around here. You have to go to Atlanta to get that stuff, and but sorry, it's just a side note. So I wonder how long the Pine View restaurant actually lasted, considering none of the others last. The restaurant had seen the maroon card, and 2 guys, a woman, and 2 small children got out and came in and had lunch. And then they paid their bill and got out. And they left, driving this direction towards the mill. And so he did say they took something in or out of the trunk. It was very vague, you know. So once again, it's not really evidence. You know, I mean, they were seen. We know that they had something to do with this, but who they were and why has never been found out. And to this day, you know, it's never been solved. There were rumors that it had something to do with moonshine. You know, I really don't know what to think about this case. I think they killed him over something. To me, it seems like a crime of opportunity. I think it sounds to me like somebody, maybe they were on drugs. I mean, it was the 60s. But I'm thinking someone with rage. There's somebody who just could not take a temper, and when he said, you know, maybe he said no about the barrel or something, that, or the guy didn't like the price, or maybe they weren't for sale, whatever it was, that this guy, this altercation that they had, he got mad, and really mad, and used whatever weapon after, you know, just went after him, you know, and out of the front steps here would have been out of sight of Miss Wick's vision, and I don't know what they would have done for a half hour to still be there. Maybe more arguing, you know, I would assume. So I don't, you know, that's a long time. So did they know each other? Was Mr. Lynch into something he shouldn't have been? That does not seem to be the case. They don't seem to say that in there. So at the end of the day, we're left with just a mystery that is lost to history. Here's underneath the mill. Rock foundation and inner running. Obviously, it needed some help standing up. Well over 100 years old. So, one of the things, old stories that go around is every creak of the old mill, people say, is that George Lynch? Trying to get back at whoever killed him. There's always got to be a ghost story in there somewhere. But, you know, I do find myself wondering as I stand here in front of this dam, you know, is that murder weapon still down there maybe? Would have been easy to miss. Join me next time if you don't mind. If you enjoyed this, please hit like, subscribe, comment. I'd love to hear it, see what you like. I am a writer, storyteller, and I love mysteries and barnyard things. So they're really very far apart, but it's all part of my life. And anyway, I hope you guys will come back for another mystery story. And as I'm leaving, let's see if I can zoom, I notice, what is that? That is a green shed, my friends. So the green shed is left. It's still here. Sorry, I'm shrinking the camera. So I don't know, in my mind I pictured it bigger, but there it is. Okay, since the first time I was out at Starr's Mill, I have done some research and in putting this video together, and found not much. I was really hoping to find out where Mrs. Wicks lived. How was it that she had a good vantage point? And I could not find that. Because she's the witness. She's the one who saw everything. She had to be close, or else she wouldn't have been able to see that good.
And of course she had no motive to make anything up. So, you know, I don't know. But, what I do know, one thing I had missed earlier that I saw is, that I did find is that in the police report, they did see that someone had broken into the mill. They didn't mention anything being taken, so I don't know about that. Obviously the motive was not robbery because, he had money in his pocket, and I said that earlier. But, one of the things I think of, you know, is it's very possible that, okay, maybe very possible is a bit of an exaggeration, but it is possible that whoever killed George Lynch is still alive. If not, it's also possible that the children who were in that car are still alive. And if we could find those kids who were in that car and remember something of that day, anybody who remembers something of that day, then we might be able to find out who killed Mr. Lynch. You know, to me, as far as motive, I see, it looks to me just like a rage thing that just happened when an old man told somebody no about something, maybe. You know, maybe there was something else going on that we just don't know about. But, yeah, you know, it really just ends as a sad story because his family never got any answers. And, you know, I guess that's where it ends. But I would really love to see it solved. That would be cool. So if anybody knows anything, anybody was in the area of Starr's Mill in 1966, you know, on the date that he was killed, get in touch with me or the Fayette County. I do believe Fayette County has a cold case department, and give them the tip. And hopefully, maybe I can figure out how to give that number. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story and a little bit of history of such a, you know, for everybody who lives in this area, that is a local landmark, and people could take pictures there, graduate. My dad had his graduation pictures there. So, you know, I mean, it's something people picnic there, it's a beautiful spot that everybody goes to and have for years. They go fishing there, you know, and, so, yeah, it's a beautiful spot, where something terrible happened a long time ago. And, I don't want to forget about Mr. and Mrs. Lynch. I loved her name, Fannie Lou. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you like this sort of thing, I would really love a like and a share. Subscribe. If you want more of this stuff, give me a subscribe. We're going to be doing this about once a week. I hope that I can get it out once a week. And that we will be doing, going all over the Georgia, looking at mysteries. And so, anyway, till next time. Bye, guys. But, I think probably that the house Mr. and Mrs. Lynch lived in is probably gone. And possibly the same... Yeah. I am also Barnyard Girl. Barnyard Girl. And I've got to go buy chicken food. Mr. and Mrs. Lynch, sorry, totally lost my train of thought there. Because of the chickens. Okay, excuse me. Yeah, the layout still bothers me. I'm not real sure how it was. I'm not sure where Mrs. Wicks. Okay, since I filmed the first part of this, where I was actually at Starr's mill, please pardon the chickens, this is my best place for good lighting. Anyway, since then, it's bothered me to know where Mrs. Wicks' house was, because she was the witness. She's the one who saw so much of everything. And I just can't figure out where it was and where she would have lived and how she would have had a vantage point to see as much detail as she had. Seriously, they don't like it when I talk out here. They do this. But anyway,